Hey, my friends. Today we have a special guest on the show talking to us about how to bounce back from life challenges, from things that you never planned on. I learned so much from this episode, and I know you will too, so stay tuned. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey. Welcome back to Fulfillment Therapy. Today we have a special guest on the show, Jen Hansen. Jennifer Hansen is a master mind power coach with a true passion for empowering others. Her most cherished roles are being a wife of 19 years to her wonderfully patient husband and a proud mom of 6 incredible kids. She's driven by a deep desire to give her best every day. Her greatest passion is helping others unlock their potential and achieve their best selves wherever she goes, whomever she encounters. I can attest to that. She's wonderful. I really love being around her. Thank you for coming on the show today, Jen.
I could say the same about you, Kendra. Honestly, I feel honored to be here. I do feel like we think about things for a reason. So I'm excited to see what unfolds because there's a reason and purpose for it. So thank you. I'm excited.
I'm actually really surprised you haven't been on the show yet. I was thinking about it. I was like, no, I know she's been on the show before. And then I went and looked. I was like, no, she hasn't. This is crazy. I wanted you to come on and talk today about setbacks, derailments. I've been working with a lot of clients lately that have been feeling kind of stuck and discouraged by life not going the way they want it to. And I know that you have some of those stories. I do. We all do, of like, okay, this was my plan and it's not even close to what I thought it would be. So do you mind sharing what's the first thing that came up in your mind when I talked about the topic?
Everybody, I'm sure when they're asked that question, just like flooded with all the things. To me, it wasn't hard to come up with something. However, I think one of the most recent setbacks this year that really, I think, made the most significant change for me and our family, because my choices have really affected our family. At this point, I'll get vulnerable because it's not necessarily about me to be okay. The beginning of the year was already a bit challenging. Our industry can sometimes be swayed by weather, actually all the time be swayed by weather. So it was already a bit challenging, but a weird, unexpected thing happened probably around 7:20. I was with the little kids. We had dinner set, expecting 2 of the kids and my husband to be home. Actually, all the rest of the kids were coming home in their different cars and from different places. They're all going to be home. I had dinner ready and it was a great night. It was beautiful. I felt the spirit. All of a sudden I get a phone call and my husband, his voice is shaking and I'm like, whoa, what's going on? And he says, I think I just ran over a person and killed him. Like, no joke. In those moments, everything just stops. And you wonder, what does this mean? I may not have a husband anymore. I may be a single mom. What am I going to do? Like all these things, just what can I do to help? He was just a minute up the highway. I could see it from the house. I could see the lights from the police officer up there. He's like, I need you to come get the kids. There's 2 kids with him, which was awful in and of itself, right? And he was trying to keep him from seeing the person. And so, long story short, the good news is it wasn't him, but he was the next person at the scene who hit this man's bike who had been hit previously. There's a lot of emotional trauma to work through. I was grateful. I feel like I made the switch and I'm like, you're home. I have a husband. You're not in jail. There was a huge emotional traumatic thing to work through and release. And I didn't realize how much my supporting him through that was weighing on me until I hit the wall and I was just exhausted and just emotionally a wreck.
Yeah.
The cool thing was, I feel like there's so many blessings and miracles to that because we chose to just sit back and say, whoa, this really sucks, but now what? And what are the blessings in all of this? Like we were trying to see them. And in that moment, we recognized there's actually a ton of miracles that happened through this whole thing. We were able to work through it quickly. It took some time in financial ways and whatever to figure it out. We still don't have my husband's truck back. It changes perspective, which changed some decisions down the road of like what I'm doing for my career and what my kids put together. It brought us more strength spiritually. We had great people around us. There's a lot more to that story, and I'm happy to dive more into it. But in a nutshell,
So in this story, like, how did that shift your perspective? And you had these moments, right? Like you said, I'm not going to have my husband. I'm going to be raising his 6 kids on my own. What does this mean for us? But then afterwards, did you feel like you had this shift in what your priorities are or how you see things and then how you went about doing things afterwards?
yeah. Well, it's kind of like the honeymoon phase of a challenge. It's really easy to do all the things right, but like keep in that perspective and do things according to that perspective. Be really studious, extra prayerful, and intentional with my kids and my husband. Spend the time, invest the time with your loved ones because you just never know. The reality is, it doesn't always stay that way. But the nice thing is that I have that marker that if I do get off track, I'm like, you just never know. It's different when you've experienced it because there's the emotional attachment to that whole experience that just takes you from here, getting off track to like here really quickly. Biggest thing was time with family, being intentional. I mean, that's really the biggest thing because there's so many distractions. I think if we're going to go broad spectrum, the world, just so much distraction.
Yeah, I recently went on a trip, really grateful to do it. I left for 3 weeks and I didn't have any Wi Fi, any texting, any calls. I didn't realize it was going to be that disconnected, but it was glorious on so many levels. But then to come back, it was like being on another planet. I had no idea what was going on in the world, at my house. And when I came back, I have so many worthy goals and I love goals, but it puts things in perspective a little bit more of what matters. It's just being present with my family, being still more. I'm reading this book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it's letting go a little bit more, recognizing the stage we are in. There's so many beautiful parts to it and not to rush it. I came back and I've really been slowing down. I have some great goals and I'm still trying to find that sweet spot. Like learning Spanish and working out as much as I was, playing pickleball, all these things are great, but they all come at a cost too, right? I know we're talking about derailment and challenges, but perspective is a big part of that. Like what matters most, not from the shame perspective, but how do we course correct and make sure we're doing it in a way that brings true joy? So thank you for speaking to that. Did anything else come up? Any other thoughts on your life's journey and maybe at the time disappointments that ended up being exactly what you needed?
I'll also speak to my spiritual journey just over the last year. Last year, I dove in to a career choice as a coach working for someone else full time. It was about 8 or 9 months, very full time. And boy, was it stressful. It physiologically changed me because it was so stressful. It was not healthy. And there's a lot of really great rewarding things about it, but sales specifically is high stress, high intensity, and it wasn't healthy. But the one thing I learned from that experience, which I believe that whole last winter, plus that experience in last February and March taught me was no success is ever worth it without the one who actually allowed me to have that success. That was just like smack in the face, whatever kind of chastening I needed to say, listen up and wake up. You're missing the point. You really need to get this concept. I'm here for you and you just need to be with me so I can help you succeed in a more fulfilling way. So that was huge for me. I'll never forget that moment.
That reminds me of another client. We have different religious views, perspectives, and I actually love that and appreciate him so much. He's an incredible man. Through our journey as therapist and client, he has decided that the thing he values most is his spirituality and his relationship with God. He said, Kendra, all the things we're working on are really helpful and great, But the things that I love the most are the things that reconnect me with God, with my relationship with Him, and everything gets better. And so every time he comes back to counseling, he sets goals around those values, and he comes back sharing the wins and what really matters. We're looking back on the last year, 18 months of counseling. And he's like, yeah, it continues to be the number one thing for me because everything else falls into place when I improve that relationship and come close to him, when I nurture that relationship. And I just thought it was so great to hear because people sometimes try to take spirituality out of everything. It's not very trendy, but it is what brings a lot of joy for so many people. I love how that has been a lot of peace for you. Not all listeners are Christian or believe in God necessarily, but that peace that comes to you for that. Tell me a little bit more about some thoughts that you had as you were thinking about this interview.
Some of the things that really have stemming from all of that I've learned and I've taken and applied over the last 6-7 months or so. The big decisions that seem like the biggest decisions ever in the moment or the biggest issue in the moment, it just makes them not matter as much. For example, here's another short story. There was a huge inspired thought that really took me by surprise because as listeners heard, I'm a mind power coach and that's my passion. I love coaching, just like you love counseling and coaching others. That's what feeds and fuels me. I had a stark impression that I needed to not pursue it heavily, set it aside, be open to it, but not really pursue it because I didn't feel as mentally and emotionally present and available for all the kids that we have. One's going on a mission, just graduated. Another one's graduating this year. And another year and a half, another one will graduate. And then the next one will graduate. Right after them, I have 2 left. This is big stuff. And I want to be more present. And so in the moment, I found myself thinking, why in the world would you even consider? And it was very critical of myself. Like, you can't stop that. You've been working so hard on it for so long. And I said, well, why not? I asked myself, well, why wouldn't I? Or why couldn't I? It's my family and it's not going anywhere. And I asked myself, why am I having these thoughts? And I realized it's because I'm comparing myself to what others have done and I haven't done yet. And I was like, well, that's silly. So while I probably would have stewed over that a lot longer without the extra perspective I had just gained, I think that really helped in that moment. Now, that being said, I released myself from any extra activity that I was currently doing to pursue my coaching career. And as that space was made, it was like telling Heavenly Father I was ready for something greater. And He allowed me to be a Relief Society president 2 days after I made that decision. It's interesting. And 2 or 3 days after that happened, I think the biggest thing was that I made space and I wasn't allowing Him in my life like He needed me to. I made the decision. He allowed me to do something else that was going to help me grow the way I needed to grow right now. And then I was given an opportunity with Costa Vida. I live next to the owners of Costa Vida. They just needed me to be a relationship builder and to do it with athletes. And I love coaching athletes. It didn't take a lot of brain power. It was more of just sales. I didn't have to sell Costa Vida. It's already amazing. I'm everybody's best friend without having to try. Here's food. When you come in town, I got food for you. It was flexible how I needed it to be. And I was still very present with my family. But making that switch really changed our family dynamics and what it needed to be at that time. And now as a Relief Society president, there's just so much. If you don't know, listeners, you deal with a lot of people's stuff. Well, we got stuff here we're talking about, but times that by 160 or more. And you got stuff all the time that you have to filter and help and coach and counsel, all the things, right? So my skills and talents are being used differently. Every day I get to look in the mirror and think, I'm not doing as much as I feel like I should or want to or need to, but actually I'm excelling here. And it's like this rat race sometimes of like, should I, coulda, woulda, and I'm shooting on myself and I'm having to change it real fast. Because we know we can try to change things up as fast as we can, but the perspective comes back. And I'm like, does it really matter? Not really. But I move on and I relieve that stress and I go, like, what in this moment matters the most? So it just keeps coming up. What matters most in this moment? And I just love it.
I loved how you asked yourself the question, why couldn't I? Because we're similar in this. We love our goals. We have this vision. We like to stick to it. We like to grow. We have this plan. And I love that. I think it can be a superpower and it can also be a vice when we're so attached to that plan. For example, I got up this morning to go to the gym and I was so exhausted and tired. My husband's like, why don't you go later? I'm like, because I go in the morning. That's what I have to do. Maybe it's okay to deviate from the plan sometimes.
Flexibility.
Yeah, exactly. But just saying, so why couldn't I? And then being still enough to explore that. Okay, maybe I'm comparing myself to others and maybe I can let that go and release yourself for something greater, like you said. And not just having that tunnel vision that prevents us from having these greater opportunities or ways that will refine us and help us grow and be better for our family. I think we get so hyper focused on things sometimes that it can detract from what does matter most, like we just talked about. So before we started, we were talking about our own things, and my kids, the two youngest, have not been challenged and they're kind of not thriving in school as much as I thought. And I do not like homeschooling, but the more they're talking, I'm starting to feel like these little nudges that maybe I need to explore it, which kind of makes me want to throw up, to be honest. Hate to be real here.
100% agree.
And it doesn't always go how we want it to, but what's going to bring us more joy ultimately and long term is I'm not going to have more regret that I set aside maybe some professional pursuits in order to provide that for my kids. We're talking about a very small amount of time in their lives. And like you just said, you're thinking about like, I have this much time before my kids are moved out. I'm starting to think about that. My youngest is 9, and if they are really thriving, they might even graduate early, my youngest too. So there's not much time. Thank you for speaking to that and reminding us, okay, what does matter most? What about for listeners that are feeling like, oh, it's just hard to keep this perspective. It's hard when I feel derailed, I'm discouraged and overwhelmed. I don't know what to do. What would you say to people that feel like they've been in that situation?
I'm learning and I'm trying to practice better asking the right questions, whether it's in prayer or if it's just in the moment where I'm trying to make a big decision. Sometimes the question isn't, should I do this or not? But it's like, what if I do? What if I don't? What would happen? What wouldn't happen if I did? Or what wouldn't happen if I didn't? It's exploring the deeper part of me rather than the surface part of it. It doesn't always think through the future of things. Sometimes asking the right questions. So that one question, like, why couldn't I? I think most of society is very selfish by nature, not a mean way, but like we're all about me, me, me. The nice thing about having some kind of deity that you admire and turn to is that you can remove yourself from the situation a little bit. If you utilize that deity as like a friend or someone else, you can remove yourself and get a different perspective.
Yeah.
And just ask, just talk to yourself. That's fine too. I mean, really works because we're so into ourselves that we sometimes just have a hard time getting perspective. That's why we have counselors, right? And sometimes in therapists, and it just gets us out of our own way for a second and helps give a different perspective.
Absolutely. You mentioned that comparing part. I'd like to pivot to that for a minute. Has it been historically hard for you to have compassion on yourself and not get too hard on yourself? Because I feel like a lot of listeners struggle with that. And how do you bring in that compassion and that patience for yourself?
That is a good question, especially for anybody at their own level. Such a hard thing. One of the things I think is perspective, not just who am I as a mom, a coworker, or a business owner. Who am I really? To me, I'm a child of God who has great worth. I don't have to prove myself. That gives me some comfort for sure. I would say the most amount of comfort. Having good people in your corner is really important. You hear that timeless saying, it matters who's in your top 5 people who you surround yourself with, because they're going to provide positive energy for you to figure things out in, or they'll provide feedback or counsel or whatever they do well. Maybe it's just a hug. I don't know, but making sure you have the right people in your circle is so important.
Thank you for listening to part 1 with Jennifer Hansen as our podcast guest. She has more incredible stories and insights in part 2. Don't forget to check out our new coaching and check us out on Facebook and Instagram. You can find us there. We have lots of things that we put out to help you improve your mental health and wellness all the time. We'll see you back here in just a little bit. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.